It's crazy how fast things change in the NFL. Look no further than the San Francisco 49ers. This week, I still can't believe this quote. Kyle Shanahan, 49ers head coach, he said Brock Purdy would have to melt in practice to lose the 49ers job. He'd have to melt in practice.
Like rain comes down?
I guess. Yeah, I don't know. He just melts away over there, kind of like Frosty the Snowman or something like that.
Wicked Witch of the West over here?
But think about this.
Friend Snowman.
We are 2 years removed from Trey Lance being the number 3 overall pick.
Getting traded up for.
And I just looked at that too, Jared, is if you look at it, it was basically the 49ers trading with the Dolphins. The Niners traded 3 first-round picks and a third-round pick. Or if it screws you up, like there's 1 pick swap in the first round, then 2 first-rounders and a third. But what's interesting is one of those picks, these picks, they trade hands and trade teams and all this stuff. One of those picks was the 12th overall pick. That was Micah Parsons of the Dallas Cowboys. He's involved in that trade. Yes. Yes.
Jeez, yeah.
So the Niners, one of those picks that they traded.
And by the way, and don't sleep on Cole Strange to the Patriots. That was another one of them.
It's another one of them, yes. And if we're keeping track, Brian Brzee, who went to the Saints, right? The Clemson defensive lineman right there. And are we still waiting on the third-round pick? We might be waiting on that one. But no, we got it. It's Channing Tindall. Yeah, we got a linebacker in there.
Well, Micah Parsons a dead stop. I mean, if you redid that draft, he might be the number 1 pick in that draft.
He is an unbelievable defensive player, arguably the best in the game right now. Like Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett. There are a few special ones up there.
For sure.
He's right up there. And the Niners traded. That was one of the picks that they gave up to get Trey Lance. And now, 2 years later, the only way he's QB1 is if Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, the last pick of the draft, melts in practice right after having elbow surgery when he got knocked out of the NFC title game. That's how fast things can change in the NFL.
Gosh, I got to tell you, that draft alone, the Trey Lance draft, is a fireable offense for almost every single head coach and general manager pairing in the NFL. The San Francisco 49ers have done such a great job of building that team and building that culture, and I'm talking specifically about Shanahan and Lynch, that they saved their jobs. Because when you move that much capital to get a player who has been this unproductive, you're gone. I mean, look at Kyler Murray. He's a Pro Bowler. He got the general manager and a head coach fired. That's how this business normally works. I mean, Trey Lance, he has played a handful of snaps at the NFL level. He's been made of glass, and he's been unproductive. Okay, now, that doesn't mean sometime in the future he can't all of a sudden Geno Smith us and be like, whoops. You all wrote it.
A verb now.
You all wrote it.
Turn that into a verb.
And I didn't read it, But outside of that happening, I mean, this is as bad of a draft selection as we've ever seen. So, look, I want to go back to what I said originally. If it weren't for the most important thing, which is the NFC Championship game appearances and the fact that this team has dominated that division, and it's been a crowded division at times. You have the Rams who have been burgeoning and winning a Super Bowl in this time. Like, it's a competitive division, and they've still been on top for the most part. But if it weren't for that, Shanahan and Lynch, they would have lost their jobs, because this will go down, if it continues on the path it's currently on, as maybe the worst draft selection we've ever seen.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's even more remarkable is all of these issues with the Niners, right? And they're still significant favorites to win their division. And they are starting a quarterback this year. We think it's we're assuming it's going to be Brock based off of that report that Brian just read. But heading into the year, we didn't know. We didn't know if Brock was going to be healthy coming off the elbow injury. We didn't know if Trey Lance was going to reach out and grab that job. Well, I think both of those questions have been answered. And I think it is fair now. I was very skeptical of the Niners' price to win the division heading into the questions that we just asked. Minus 165 right now at BetMGM is basically saying they're a 60% chance to win the division. And there hasn't been one snap in the NFL yet this season. And they are already a significant favorite in a crowded division. A Rams team that I think will be better this year, but probably still rebuilding and reloading from the Super Bowl team. The Seahawks, who were in the playoffs last year and gave the Niners a run in that playoff game, but eventually succumbed to what was a much deeper and better defense and overall more talented Niners team. And I think that is the reason why those people still have jobs that we just mentioned. Because that's how good – the Niners are immune from even drafting your franchise quarterback in the top 5 and still continuing to have team success the following year, a breath away from the Super Bowl, and still favored to win the division this year, despite that pick being so much of a bust that we have to puzzle and question our sanity for why it was made.
Well, and that's the thing. I think of it from this angle, which is if you think of possible what-if scenarios coming true, we're not saying, hey, what if the Houston Texans win a Super Bowl this year? It's got to be within the realm of reasonable, okay? But think about this. Think about the ripple effect of what if Brock Purdy is fool's gold? What if he isn't truly a franchise quarterback? What that would mean for the Niners and the NFC. Take it a step further. Think about these young quarterbacks in the NFC. Who's good? Who's going to pan out and who won't? Think about what if Desmond Ridder of the Falcons, what if he's good? What if Jordan Love of the Packers is good? You look at who else? Bryce Young, rookie with Carolina. Sam Howell with Washington, first-year starter. Justin Fields with the Bears. This is year 3. Is he good?
Big year for Justin Fields.
It's a big year for him. Seems to be like a fork-in-the-road type year. So he hasn't had weapons to this point, for the most part. 24 touchdowns, 21 picks. How much does DJ Moore help that? Can he be a true franchise quarterback? But you think about all those guys in the NFC, and depending on who pans out, who doesn't, I'll tell you this much. If Brock Purdy has been as productive, or meaning not as productive, with Trey Lance, the Niners in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
So who pans out, who doesn't? It's going to be huge in the NFC because it's wide open. It's there for the taking for many teams right now.
Yeah, listen, it's one thing to successfully cook the hamburgers for the cookout, right? It's another thing to start a forest fire in order to do it, right? I think it's better to use the barbecue.
It's a
right?
fantastic reference.
I mean, because that, yes, the ends do justify the means, but the means are important too. So if the 49ers do end up winning a Super Bowl, and they also made one of the biggest draft blunders along the way, that does still count for something. It's still an embarrassment where you could have been rich off of picks like we just laid out. So, I mean, you got to be very careful how you spend that draft capital. And maybe that was the biggest lesson that John Lynch as a general manager has ever learned, that you don't go all in on a kid, who has barely played at the college level, has barely played football over the course of his life if you really look at the grand scheme of things, and you say, yeah, no, we're all in. Like that because you just mentioned all of the young quarterbacks in the NFC basically. I bet you if you got John Lynch and you got Kyle Shanahan on the sodium pentothal, right, on the truth serum, and you told them right now today, if I could straight up trade Brock Purdy for any of those young quarterbacks you just mentioned, they would do it in a heartbeat. Even though he's Purdy, the San Fran snowman, and unless he melts, he gets the starting gig. Bryce Young, yes. Sam Howell, yes. Jordan Love, yes. Justin Fields, yes. Give me those guys. Well, Purdy, sorry. See you later. You melted.
It's crazy, but they've got Trey Lance and they're saying no to him.
Right. Well, yeah.
You know what this reminds me of? So when I was a kid, I would always, my mom would want to come, hey, do you want to go play a game or something? And, yeah, sure, Mom, let's go. Let's play Legos. Let's go play a game. And then my friends would come to the door. Hey, you want to go outside and shoot some hoops or play hockey or whatever? Yep, bye, Mom. See you later. Like that to me, that's Brock Purdy. Like at some point,
Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Mom, going to play hockey outside. Whatever we just set up, I don't want to do that anymore. Like there is going to be some point where the Niners pull the rug and move on to their franchise quarterback in the future. But then there's this little bug inside the back of my head that keeps saying, what if he's Tom Brady? Like the 7th round pick that just becomes this great. Now, the odds of that happening are probably as good as the odds of that Texans over Colts Super Bowl or whatever, crazy concoction Brian was trying to cook up during those odds segment there. But I think there's a small, slight chance that he is the franchise guy. But I would not be shocked if at some point in the very near future, the Niners decide to ditch Mr. Irrelevant for the new shiny toy that comes along. But here's the lens I'm trying to look through this at, and maybe you guys can help me compare it. If we had to compare what the Panthers just gave up to go up and get Bryce Young compared to what the Niners had to give up to go up and get Trey Lance, we feel so differently about those two trades, right? Because Bryce Young played at Alabama, has a lot of resume tape compared to Trey Lance didn't, right? Like those two trades I think are comparable. I know number 3, number 1, not quite the same, but recently we haven't seen a lot of big moves up for a quarterback. We saw it this year, and we saw it with Trey Lance. It's such a different, like the optics of those two trades are so different. Everyone who has a brain would say, I'd rather have Bryce Young in that situation.
Here's the thing.
Right?